Bada bing, bada boom. The best week of the year is here. Hunter, it's rivalry week, man. Week 11. It seems like we were just like thinking about this. And how are we already this far into the year?
I don't. The fall goes by way too quick, man. To think that we're already 12 episodes in is just wild to me. And we're over halfway through the football season, which is crazy.
It's sad, is what it is. It's sad.
It is sad. It means winter's coming.
Yeah, winter's coming. We only have a few months of football left. And, this fall weather still here in Salt Lake. It's like 60 degrees and sunny right now. I need to lose like 10 degrees. Like 50 is the good fall weather. It's a little too warm for me here. I need my cold fall weather.
You see, if they could take the average of where I'm at and where you're at, it'd be perfect because it's around like 40 around here. So I would love for it to be 50, but I have a feeling it's only going to get colder in Michigan.
Yeah, well, enjoy it while you can because the heat here sucks. But anyways, let's jump into it. Or I guess we can talk about the Lions real quick. An absolute shootout in LA. Yep. I guess two great offenses, so we couldn't be too surprised. A couple concerns with our defense. I mean, we needed to get a few more stops there, and they're looking to be a little bit weak in that department. But man, the offense was clicking, and overall, just an insane game to watch.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it was like being there at SoFi. Great game by the Lions offense. Defense definitely shaky, but tons of injuries back there. We got CJ still out, Mosley's out, James Houston's hurt. So once those guys come back, I think the defense will be a bit better. But I do think that is something that the Lions need to address in the offseason because our offense is great, don't get me wrong, but you don't want to go in every game knowing that your offense is going to put up 40 points for you to win. That being said, I do think the Chargers have a great offense, and I think their offense is probably better than anything the Lions would see in the playoffs other than the 49ers and the Eagles. So that's a good sign, but hopefully Aaron Glenn and the defense can turn it around come playoff time.
Yeah, and I do think there were a few drives that we should have gotten off the field on either third or fourth down, and some what I thought, it's hard to tell in the stadium sometimes, but I thought there were some bad penalties out there. You can probably speak to it a little better than I can because you had the chance to watch it on TV and probably get the benefit of replay. But from my seat, some of those looked to be bad, and I think we should have had a few more stops.
Yeah, that pass interference that the Lions got on the goal line, I think, was complete BS. And it's crazy. They stopped them 7 times, but the 8th time they let it in. It was a great stand by the defense. I think it was a BS call, but the same old Lions, they get a bad call like that and they break. They fall under that, the poor officiating. But brand new Lions, they're able to overcome it. And man, Dan Campbell, like the balls on that dude, and I love it because he was consistent with going for it on fourth down. Like he didn't just do it early in the game, but when the game was on the line, he still went for it. And man, that was an awesome way to finish.
Well, I want to wrap this up so we can get into fantasy football. But really quick, man, just imagine the outcry of people if we go for it on 4th and 2, don't get it, the Chargers go down and kick a field goal or score. Like people are going to be all over him. But since it worked out, it was a good decision. So I like it. And like you said, he was consistent in the play calling and consistent with the aggressiveness. So I like it. But man, if he doesn't get that, like people are calling for his head, which is the shitty part of that whole situation.
That's the way she goes.
Well, anyways, let's get into fantasy football. I was going to actually say some good matchups last week, but really there were no good matchups. Every game seemed to be a blowout. So we'll kick it off with the Dust Balls and the Flying Circus. A huge game for the Flying Circus here. A missed opportunity, I would say, for Mudge, but when you go up a guy putting up 140 points in the Flying Circus, it's really hard to compete with. So, what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, so that was an interesting matchup. 2 teams that are pretty much neck and neck for the second and third spot in the Maroon division. So this was a huge matchup for playoff seeding implications. But man, Mark, what a performance! I believe if I'm doing this math right, I think he had about almost nearly 80 points, maybe 75, 80 points coming from that Lions game alone between Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, and Keenan Allen. That was a great game for Mark's point of view. If you're the Dust Balls, that's a tough one to lose. Both teams are still safely in the playoff hunt as of now. Man, what a performance by Mark, and you love to see the circus bounce back like that.
Yeah, big game, and I think the league leader in points. Actually, you know what? I think there was one above him, but pretty close to the league leader in points from the previous week. But anyways, on to the next one. Your squad against the Silly Sliders. I remember you talking about this last week, saying that records were going to go out the window, and you never know what could happen. And well, what we expected to happen happened.
Yeah, it was a good performance by my squad. You know, happy to see them bounce back after a lackluster last couple of weeks. I think Justin put it best when he said this matchup was over, like 7-8 weeks ago. I found that pretty funny. You know, good performance by my squad to get back on track. The Sliders, unfortunately, I think that's just about gonna do it for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, they still have a chance. It would just take a miracle and a lot of teams in front of them losing. But tough performance for the Sliders, and you know, there's always next year, Justin.
Yeah, Justin, sorry, man. Hey, you had a good run. You put up a fight. There's no way that you make the playoffs. I'm just gonna say it. So there's no shot. But good season. You're a 3-time champ for a reason. I know you're going to come back stronger next year. If I were you, I would start preparing for that consolation bracket, because that's where you're going to end up. So maybe I'll eat my words, but I truly don't think so. But on to our next one. Turn Your Head in Golf versus the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. The one that we coined last week as Game of the Week. And it didn't really live up to it. I mean, a pretty dominant performance by Golf, putting up 135 to the Mad Ants 96. They fall just short of the century mark, and Turn Your Head in Golf takes the lead on them in that division.
Yeah, a huge matchup for Trent. That was a must win for either team. With the loser now being out of the playoffs, surprisingly, you know. The loser of this game is sitting at 5-5 in the Mad Ants, and they'd be tied for second in the Maroon division. So, you know, it's a tough break. Well, I mean, once again, it's been the story all year. Mad Ants, inconsistent team. This week, unfortunately, was one of their down weeks when they needed it the most. Trent's team, you know, great performance. But the Mad Ants are still not out of it. I mean, they're only 2 games back from having the bye in the Gold division. So there's still plenty of season left for them. And I expect them to bounce back this week.
Yeah, 2 sluggish weeks in a row for the Mad Ants, really, like you said, when they needed it most. So tough week for them. And, you know, with the Mauser Bowl coming up this week, we'll see if they can bounce back and get back in the win column. So on to our next matchup. The high scorer of the week, the hottest team in the league, Chuck's Crumb Bombs with 141 points. This guy is on an absolute tear. And unfortunately for Ashton, he was on the other side of that.
Yeah, a disappointing week from the league number 1, but the Crumb Bums, I mean, we've been saying it for the last several weeks, as they're the hottest team in the league for a reason. You know, CeeDee Lamb is a big part of it. That dude is just absolute money right now. Dak is just force feeding him, and he's catching everything that goes his way. Crumb Bums, you know, after I beat them in week 4 or whatever, I wasn't too concerned with their squad, but now that I got them right on my heels, I'm getting very nervous. And that's not a team I want to face in the playoffs. Yeah,
they look tough, and they just keep putting up big performance after big performance. Is that 2 weeks in a row of being the high scorer, I think? And even 3 weeks ago, I think they put up a great performance over 115 or 122. So
back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, back-to-back weeks is the high score, and his team's on an absolute tear. So whoever plays him,
scratch that. Let me interrupt you real quick. That's 3 weeks in a row of being the highest scorer.
You heard it here first, folks. This is the hottest team in the league, the longest active win streak in the league, and 3 weeks in a row being the highest score. So Chuck's team is really coming together. He'll probably be getting Justin Jefferson back soon. Maybe he'll keep him on his bench. Maybe he'll keep him on his bench. Who knows? Yeah. But with the new quarterback in Minnesota, like Jefferson could be a huge addition to what is already kind of an awesome team that Chuck's put together. So big win by him, and he's looking to keep the momentum rolling into the final week.
Yep. And moving on to our last matchup of the week, we have the Do You Jobbers with 138 taking on the Golden Tate Warriors, who put up 84. You know, dominant performance by your squad. What kind of happened this week, if you don't mind me asking?
Just a lot of solid performances, really. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the guy who absolutely carried my team this week, Mr. Dak Prescott. I picked him up 3 weeks ago when Justin Fields went down, and he has been an absolute stud since I got him. I think this is from memory, so forgive me if I'm a little off here, but I think he went for like 32 3 weeks ago, maybe like 35 last week, and now 53, I think, this week. So he's been awesome for me.
Yep.
And I honestly, even with Fields coming back this week, I think I'm just going to keep Dak rolling because that offense there in Dallas is looking unstoppable. And if he can keep putting up performances like that, I think maybe I'll have a chance to win out. But great performance by Dak, great performance by the rest of my team. And I put out a statement game. I was hoping that, maybe Mudge could beat Mark this week. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way. So I'm still 2 back with 4 to go. But I'm literally less than 1/10 of a point off the second highest scorer in the entire league. And I have 3 wins. So it's kind of the same old story for me. The control is not in my hands, but all I can do is go out and keep winning games and hope the dominoes fall in my favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough loss for Josh. I think this loss pretty much keeps him out of the playoffs. I mean, technically he's still alive, but he's in the same boat as Justin in the Maroon division. It's just going to take a lot of losing in front of him for him to slip in there. And, these guys have accounted for 4 of the last 5 or 6 D-League trophies, and they might both be in the consolation ladder. So, there's some new blood coming for the top this year.
Yeah, and I will say here on the podcast, we forgive, but we never forget. And so I had to avenge the loss that you had against the Golden State Warriors a few weeks back. He came with the heat after the game, and so I had to do the same. So I wanted to shout out the pod and my co-host here. I had to get one for him, and I went out and did just that. So
appreciate it.
With that said, that wraps up last week's recap. Not a lot of close games there. Maybe we'll have some better luck with some barn burners here in Rivalry Week. But that does bring us into the next segment here, the power rankings. I'm really excited about this week's power rankings because when we got the results from the committee, we were going through these and we're like, wow. So do you want to go ahead and kick us off and run us through, as you guessed, 1 and 2 are wait a second.
I think that's Clark Bar's football team at the 1, and at number 2, we got the Crumb Bums. Link's football team is nowhere in sight. I was shocked when I saw this too. I personally don't agree with the 1 spot. I'm not gonna deny it here. I do have a good squad. I'm not mad about being at the 1 spot. I just think with Ashton having a better record than me and having the head-to-head, probably still deserved it for another week. If he's gonna lose in week 11, then I can see him dropping. But no Tyreek Hill this past week, and back-to-back weeks of pretty poor performances from Ashton. So I still think he's got the best team in the league, and I expect him to bounce back this week. But the committee is going to slide him down in the meantime. And then Crumb Bums, I think they have just as good a case as anyone for the number 1 spot. If we're talking just true power rankings, they may not have the best record, but they're the hottest team in the league. They've been putting up 3 weeks of the top score. They're playing just as good as anyone right now. And I think they have a case for the 1 spot as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting. I mean, standings exist for a reason, but power rankings exist for a separate reason. And I think, power rankings might take a little bit of recency bias into play, but that's just the way that those go. And so, with Ashton having 2 very, do I say poor? I guess I can say mediocre performances the last 2 weeks. I mean, I can see why they moved him down. Personally, I thought, maybe he'd get bumped down to the 2, but dropping 2 spots to the 3 was something I didn't personally see coming. But, I think the top 3 is a toss-up. I couldn't tell you who the best team is out of those 3 because all 3 teams have, a really great squad. So I don't necessarily disagree with the top 3. But then again, if they were in a different order, I probably wouldn't disagree with that either. But on to number 4 here, and up a spot from last week, is Turn Your Head and Golf. And I know when we had him on the pod last week, he said that anywhere from that 4 to 6 range is where he feels like his team should be. And that's exactly where he is, but on the lower end of that range, higher, I don't know, however you want to say it. But in the 4 spot, I mean, his team's playing well.
Yeah, they are playing well. I think this is a great spot for him. He has been playing well recently. I don't think he's good enough to be in that top 3 tier, but another great performance by him, and he's going to be a team that no one wants to see come playoff time.
Yeah, he's a true wild card in the league. Like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. I could see him in the first round of the playoffs putting up like 60 points and getting knocked out. And I could also see him, rolling through teams and winning the championship. So a huge wild card in our league, and I absolutely love it. So on to our number 5 spot here is Mark's Flying Circus, a huge bounce back win this week, and that's going to bring him up 2 spots here in the power rankings.
Yeah, this was a must win for Mark. You alluded to it earlier, but if Mark were to lose this week, you won, so you'd only be 1 game back and have a great chance at the playoffs, and Mark would have you right on his heels. But, great performance from him. He dominated this week with a 140-point performance. You hope to see a squad rolling. That Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown stack is looking good, and I believe they have the Bears coming up, so it's not a great defense, so watch out for that stack moving forward.
Yeah, great week by Mark. I think he deserves to be back here in the top 5. And the guy that he knocked out of the top 5 is our number 6 seed, the Denver Dust Balls. Mudge was on a good trajectory, and all of a sudden just kind of ran into a buzzsaw in playing the Flying Circus. So the Dust Balls do drop 2 spots, but like you said earlier, they're still comfortably in the playoffs, and I don't think they necessarily have anything to worry about yet. Maybe as we approach the end of the year, they might have something to worry about, but at this time, even in the 6th spot, I think they can feel comfortable and kind of take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. At this point, your goal is just to make the playoffs, and anything can happen once you get in. So I like the 6th spot for the Dust Balls. Hopefully they don't have a bounce back performance this week, but we shall see.
We shall. And that brings us to number 7, down a spot from last week, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. Just not a great performance from them. And I think, like we said earlier, two performances in a row that, weren't the best that we've seen from them. So I think, dropping them to the 7 is something I could have seen coming. What are your thoughts on the Mad Ants? I know we say it, they're inconsistent, but besides that, is there anything that you would have to, reason that they might be a little bit higher or might be a little bit lower in these power rankings?
I agree with the number 7 spot. They haven't been performing well recently. I mean, we've said it a million times on this show, but they have to be the most inconsistent team in the league. That being said, though, I think they're due for a bounce back performance, and no better week than rivalry week against Mark. Get some revenge for earlier in the season. I think the Mad Ants, they are inconsistent, but they're not a team I want to face come playoff time, because they could very well go for 150 on any given week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good team as long as all of the guys are performing, at the same time. So I think 7's good for him, and he's right where he belongs. So down to the final 3 here, number 8 and up 2 spots from the previous week, the Ogama Do You Jobbers. Being in the 10, I think lit a little bit of a fire under our ass last week. It really hurt to be considered the worst team in the league, when in reality, I think I'm at least a top 5 team in the league. Unfortunately, the record doesn't reflect that, but still, with that said, into the number 8 spot, a big win last week, and still on the outside looking in. I feel like this spot makes sense, but it still sucks to be this low.
I actually disagree with you. I think you are too low. If we're talking true power rankings, I mean, you saw it up at the top, they threw records out the window. I think in this case, you got to throw records out the window. Your team, they put up points every week. I mean, you're dominating. Your points for shows it. You just happen to always go up against a top scorer. Thankfully, this week you're able to turn it around, and hopefully the rest of the year you're able to see some poor performances out of your opponents and maybe slip into that final spot in the Maroon Division playoffs.
We'll see, man. It would be the comeback story of the year, because even I had a first round draft pick that didn't play the first 4 weeks of the year and still found myself a top scorer almost every week. So to have 3 wins this far into the season, I think it sucks, especially when you look at those points for. I mean, I'm less than a 1/10 of a point behind Ashton, who has 8 wins. That's crazy.
Yeah.
5 more wins than me, and we have basically the same amount of points put up over the course of the year. So
fantasy football, a lot of it comes down to luck, and unfortunately, you've been on the wrong side of that this year.
That's just the way it goes, though. That's what makes it fun. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll slide in here at the end of the year. But on to our 2 final spots. Number 9 is the Warriors. Number 10 is the Sliders. The Sliders drop what was probably their last hope in making the playoffs. I think with their loss this week, they have the worst record in the league. They have the least amount of points scored in the league. I think they can sit pretty comfortable at that 10. Unfortunately for Justin, I think that's about all she wrote on this season for him.
Yep. Same for Josh. It's going to take a miracle for both these teams to get back into the playoffs. Unfortunate to see the former champ go down like that, but just there's always next year.
True. What does Josh have? 4 wins?
I think he's
5.
at 3.
Is he at 3?
Yeah, 3. He's 3 games back from the 3rd spot in the gold division. So it would take him winning out and then either turn your head in golf or the Crumb Bums losing out. I personally don't see that happening, but anything can happen.
Yeah, true. I'm not going to count him out just yet, but his chances are probably very, very slim. But who knows? So anyways, what are we at here? The next week's matchups, correct?
Yep.
Perfect. Oh, rivalry week matchups. Let's go. I'm excited. This is going to be fun. We also wanted to do something a little fun here going into some of these matchups. So we actually have a little special something from every member of the league. Just a quick little blurb of whatever it is they wanted to say to their opponent as rivalry week is coming upon us. So without further ado, let's go into some of those matchups. The very first one that we have two teams kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, but in rivalry week, you never know what can happen. The Golden State Warriors at 3-7 against Lanks football team at 8-2. What are you seeing in this matchup?
On paper, this doesn't look like the greatest matchup. Record-wise, we got the number 1 seed in the Maroon division versus the number 5 seed in the Gold division. But, like we said, a couple minutes ago, Josh still has a chance to make the playoffs. It's going to take a miracle, but it all starts this week. Worst case, he can play spoiler to Ashton's season and maybe keep him from getting that number 1 overall seed. On the flip side, Ashton, I think his team might be playing a little pissed off. They dropped down in the power rankings after, they did lose, but they did drop. They have Tyreek Hill coming back this week. And
that's big.
I can't remember who said it in the group message, but is Ashton just a Tyreek Hill merchant? Who knows? We'll see this week. I'm looking forward to this matchup. I hope Josh can play spoiler.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And real quick, let's cut it over to see what these two have to say about the matchup coming up here this week.
As a fellow D-League member, I would like to take this moment to endorse my rival Ashton Lang as he sets out to win his first ever D-League championship. Ashton, you have 110% of my support. Go get it.
Josh, I hope you stub your toe this week.
Awesome. So on to our next matchup of the week. We do have the 2-8 Southside Silly Sliders against the red hot 6-4 Chuck's Crumb Bums. Man, Chuck is just drooling at this matchup with a 3-game win streak, I think 3-game.
4, I believe.
Or is it 4? 4-game win streak in playing the number 10 overall team. If he can extend that to 5, he's going to be feeling great about his chances.
Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing as the previous matchup. Sliders, they're not technically out of the playoffs, but it's going to take a miracle. It all starts this week. Crumb Bums, on the other hand, are hottest team in the league. I think Justin's just looking to play spoiler at this point. And, if Chuck loses this matchup and then we get some wins elsewhere around the league, he could be sitting out the playoffs looking in, heading into the final 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, even with 2 teams heading in different paths here, I'm really curious to see what these 2 guys have to say about the upcoming matchup here in Rivalry Week.
Just want to say, GG's Chuck, congrats on beating me in Rivalry Week. 2-0 against me this year. Good job, man.
Hey, best of luck this week, Justin. I know it hasn't been the Sliders' year, but I always look forward to this matchup. Skol.
Love it. So on to our third matchup here of the week. The Mauser Bowl, baby. The Mauser Bowl. And we had Mark on his guest pod talking a little bit of smack to Jake about how he feels like he has the better team and about how he feels like that was settled there in their first matchup. So, man, I'm pumped to see. And both of these teams are neck and neck heading into this matchup. 2 5-5 teams. I could see an absolute barn burner here. What are you seeing here for this matchup?
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple things. One, I think this is a must-win matchup for both teams. Mark, maybe not so much, but if the Mad Ants lose this one, then they're going to have a real uphill battle for the final 3 weeks heading into the playoffs. Mark, on the other hand, if he loses this, he's got you right on his heels. I think a win from both of them would not safely put him in the playoffs. Maybe for Mark, it would safely put him in, but the Mad Ants, it would certainly help their chances. Also, thank goodness we got Jake on before this matchup. Last time we tried to get him on, it was after this matchup. Things didn't go his way. So this time around, we had to get him before, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say later on in the episode.
Yeah, we got to be careful not to bring up the previous 2 weeks because those weren't the greatest performances by Jake, but he still has a very high ceiling as to where he can finish in this league, and he controls his own destiny, I would say. If he can go out and he can put together a couple solid performances here at the end of the year, he can safely insert himself into the postseason, and anything can happen come playoff time. So this might be my favorite one. I have to see what these two guys have to say as they head into the second Mauser Bowl of the year.
My rival is a good man. I have no ill words towards him.
My rival is a good man. I have no ill words against him.
Love those two, man. Love those two. So on to our fourth matchup of the week. You want to take this one away, buddy?
Yeah, we got Clark Bar's football team at 7-3 taking on the Dust Balls at 5-5. This is probably, besides the Mauser Bowl, I'd say this is the best matchup this week. Two teams that are in the playoff discussion right now. I'm really looking to get a win this week, not just because it's my rival, but also I think a win here safely puts me in the Gold Division playoffs. As crazy as that sounds, I am one loss away from being in the consolation bracket, and that's just insane to me. Mudge, on the other hand, he's in the same boat as Mark. I think a win this week safely puts him in the playoffs in the Maroon Division. Loss, and he's got you right on his heels. Looking forward to this matchup. I'm hoping I can and take the dub from Mudge.
Yeah, I would say this is equally important for both teams. It's crazy. Two teams that have 2 games of separation in their records, but are both equally almost in the same spot. Me and Mudge split this year, so if somehow we tied here at the end of the year, it'd come down to the points 4. If you drop one and go to 7-4, who knows? There could be a 3-way tie there for that one spot at the top of the gold. So these are such important games coming up. And with two guys that want to make a run here in the postseason, I'm really excited to see what you and Mudge have to say about each other heading into rivalry week here.
Hey, what's going on, D-League? I got a special message for my rival Mudge. Just hope it's a good matchup. Hope we have a shootout, and I hope I come out on top and complete the sweep this year. I know I will.
Clark Bar, the Dust Balls, and the Mudge GG Curse are coming after you. We're here to avenge your Week 8 loss. Be ready.
Love it. You're going to need a big one, buddy. You're going to need a big one.
What I said was true, though.
So anyways, let's go into our fifth and our final matchup of the year. The second, I don't want to say annual because it's happening twice a year, but the second Dieterle Bowl, the Ogama Do You Jobbers at 3-7, Turn Your Head and Golf at 6-4. Man, I don't really know what to think about this one. Trent put up a great performance without his starting quarterback last week. Brock Purdy came in and had a great afternoon. And now with Patty back, I'm curious to see. Trent has to put him back in the lineup, right?
Yeah, you'd hope so. If he doesn't, maybe it works out, but benching Patty would be quite a wild thing to see. I'm looking forward to this matchup. I think this is a must win for your team, and the same thing for Trent. Trent is currently tied for second right now in the Gold Division, but only sitting 1 game back from the consolation bracket. He'd love to get some insurance here by getting a win and safely putting him in the playoff discussion. And he's also only one game back from having that bye. So, both teams are playing for something here, and this is going to be a big matchup I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, for sure. And man, I'll tell you what, I've been thinking all day about what I want to say heading into this matchup. So let's get over to that just now.
Trent, I hate to say this. I mean, welcome to the league. We're happy to have you here. Unfortunately, the Do You Jobbers are hot, and week 11 is going to be mine.
Oh, hey there. Second Dieterle Bowl of the year. We're not really focused on it too much. The team's been playing hot, not really worried. As you can see, we got other things to worry about here. We got lots of hockey to play, and that's what's really the focus of this week. So, we'll take the Dieterle Bowl win if we can get it. If not, we're not tripping. Playoffs are coming, and baby, we're taking it home this year.
All right. Well, that does it for our week 11 matchups. Rivalry week is upon us. It feels like this was just a distant dream, and all of a sudden it's here. So I'm really excited for the matchups this week. And this might be the single most important week up to this point for every team. I mean, the gold division is just an absolute arms race, just as tight as can be as we head into the final 4 weeks. And even though the maroon isn't as tight, I think there's a potential for an outsider to maybe find his way into the playoffs. So some huge matchups coming up this week, and man, I'm excited to see it go down. So finally, this will be our, we discussed this last week, 8th guest. Yes, 8th guest of the year. Really excited to have him on. I know he always has a lot to say in the fantasy group message, so let's hope he brings a lot to say here to the podcast. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to have this guy on. And anything you want to say before we kick it over to the stew?
No, looking forward to seeing what Jake has to say.
Awesome. Well, with that said, let's do it. All right, time for the best part of the podcast here. Last but certainly not least, what a pleasure to have the other man, the other myth, and the other legend, owner of the Fort Wayne Mad Ants, Mr. Jake Mauser. What an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
It's been a long time coming. I know we've had a couple. I guess you could say a bit of a rift here in the past. But you got your solo shot here. No dual interview. How are you feeling being on the podcast?
I would call it a rivalry, so there's no better time than rivalry week for this one.
Okay. So two rivals in the league then.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got me versus the podcast and me versus the old man.
I love it. Well, that actually brings me into a question I had for you. So there was this big, some would call it a revolution, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants revolution, so to speak. Can you walk us through that? Give us a little more insight into what was going through the mind in the locker room. Like, what was the consensus there? What was going on with that revolution?
The Mad Ants were sick of the podcast disrespect early in the year. So when we had our shot to take down the two co-hosts, it was blood in the water, baby. We were ready.
I love it. So you forgive, but you never forget. I think that's used one other time here in the podcast, and it sounds like you have a similar mentality there.
Yep. The Mad Ants aren't here to form friendships.
What are they here to do?
Win a championship. Win the Mauser Bowl.
It all starts this week.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Honor. No, I saw you about to talk. Go ahead there.
I was going to say, this question, you've heard it before. Something we ask every D-League member. What's your favorite D-League memory?
Probably just being able to beat up on the old man every year. And, sometimes when he's sitting there, he's looking at his computer. He's got Jamal Williams pulled up in the second round. He says, "How do I get out of here?" So you take over the computer and you get him to somebody right. And he still drafts Justin Tucker.
Well, I remember when Mark was on here a couple of weeks back, he was talking about, during the draft, he has all these guys that, the defenses, the kickers, the guys that he thinks would be great picks. But he said you're there to kind of steer him away from those? What's that draft dynamic like for you guys? Is it
there's no control in him.
Yeah, he
gets those guys, and that's that. There is no control in him.
Well, you can't blame him for going out and getting his guys.
Nope, not one bit. He loves them Lions this year, and before that, you could bank on Pierre Garçon, Tom Brady, and Derrick Henry going in the first 3 rounds.
I feel like he's always a big Mike Evans guy too, for some reason.
Oh, don't even say that name around him anymore. Sit on the ground.
That's funny. So we know what goes into Mark's draft preparation. He's got the big sheet with all his guys in there, but I'm curious to see what kind of work do you do in the off season? Do you do a lot of research, magazines, articles, or do you just kind of wing it, come draft night? What's your preparation look like?
Usually I have a phone call with Ashton. Maybe we do a mock draft. And Ashton will say something like, "Oh, I like this guy," and I just immediately cross him right off my list. So that's basically my number one thing, doing mock drafts with Ashton, crossing his guys right off. But this year it hasn't really worked out for me because somehow he's got the best team in the league.
I was going to say, that explains a lot this year. Ashton just happened to be right this year. Years past, he's not so right. But this year, you got lucky.
I have to ask, on any given Sunday, well, actually, let me rephrase. Not on any given Sunday. On this coming given Sunday, a Mauser Bowl. I mean, it's one of the most infamous matchups of the year. What's that in-house dynamic like? Like, are you guys sitting there bickering back and forth? Are you supporting each other? Like, what's it looking like in Mark's living room on a Sunday afternoon during a Mauser Bowl?
Well, this weekend, Mark's going to have a roast in the oven. We're going to be eating good this Mauser Bowl. But for me, it's no worries because we're rolling on all cylinders. We're ready for another win. He's been he usually gets a little lineup help from me throughout the week, but not this week, so I'm not even worried about that. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm going to play my guys. He's going to play his guys, and winner takes all.
I love it. He was giving you a little earful when he was on here talking about, he already thought that it was settled who the better team was. Are you looking to, even the score here this weekend and prove to him that maybe the Mad Ants are a little bit above the Flying Circus?
There's only one rivalry week, and that's this week. So that's what we've been preparing for all year.
Love it.
We talked about this earlier in the podcast, but this feels like a must-win game for both of you guys here. Both of you guys are sitting there on the edge of the playoffs. Gotta ask, what's your outlook on the rest of this season? It's no surprise and no secret that we've been calling you an inconsistent team for a while now. What's gonna be the keys to getting your team consistent and getting into those playoffs?
Trevor Lawrence doesn't suck.
ETN's stealing all his touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, they need to get it to each other. No, I just got to win a couple games. Sometimes my team's good. Most of the time they suck.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I feel like your team is
eagerly in the ladder. So,
hey, not yet. Don't count me out just yet, Mauser. I'll say this: your team is either the top scorer of the week or the bottom score. So like where are those inconsistencies coming from? Is it just boom or bust with the Mad Ants, or what are you guys doing to find a little bit more of a consistent score week in and week out?
We don't touch our lineup. Whoever's available goes. Same guys every week. Sometimes it's 80, sometimes it's $1.50.
Fair enough. And, hopefully you get some consistency and you get in the playoffs. And that leads me to my next question. A little bit of a controversy in the D-League here regarding the playoffs. What are your thoughts on this 3-point playoff
it's
buffer?
The worst rule in the league. I don't know who voted on that.
I have to ask, do you think a lot of this comes from, because it seems like the guys right now at the top of the league are happy with it and some of the middle of the pack or lower seeds in the playoffs are unhappy with it? I mean, to start the year, there wasn't a lot of conversation surrounding it, but as people started to figure out where they're going to land in the playoffs, do you think that plays a factor into how happy they are with the rule?
I don't think anybody believed it. I just thought it would go away, but it hasn't, so we're here. I had a phone call with an 8-1 Ashton Lang not too long ago, and you know what he told me?
Let me know.
That's the worst rule I've ever seen.
Well,
okay.
There's
not from me. Don't shoot the messenger on this one.
No.
Hey, I don't know. It's hard. Ashton typed in there that he liked it in the group message. So
we'll take the 3 points. Don't let them fool you.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There's a lot of controversy, and I think we need some of that here in the D League, especially with it getting a little mundane. So the Fort Wayne Mad Ants Revolution, it spiced it up. The 3-point buffer, it raised hell, and that's the kind of thing we need to keep everybody on their toes a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it does, but I truly am not a fan of the 3 points.
Now let me ask you one more question, Mauser. Week 15, first round of the playoffs, your team puts up a great performance and you win 128-126. But you are the lower seed and the other team gets a 3-point buffer. What's the first thing you're doing?
Breaking the trophy over my knee.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. The trophy is in jeopardy this year.
Nah, I wouldn't hurt the trophy. I can't. I haven't even touched it yet.
Hey, well, maybe you can touch it here.
Yeah, it's bad luck if you touch it.
Yeah, well, maybe here in a few short weeks it can be yours to hold. But last but not least, Mauser, you've been a longtime member of the D League. I just want to give you the floor here. Anything you want to say to the other members, good, bad, ugly, the floor is yours. And for all of our listeners around the world, they're just dying to know what you have to say.
Well, the only thing I have to say is Trent Dieterle, welcome to the league. You're the best podcast producer we've ever had and a great league member.
I love it. I'm sure he appreciates that. Hunter, anything else you want to spit at Jake here before we end it?
And it was a pleasure having you on. They say save the best for last. Not quite sure we did that here, but we tried our best. And I'm looking forward to the Mauser Bowl. Hopefully you can get some revenge on Mark, and hopefully I won't be seeing your team in the playoffs because I have said they're inconsistent, but with my luck, I'll catch you on one of those $150 weeks.
Yeah. Just like I did.
Yeah. Well, go Lions, boys.
All right, Jake. Appreciate you coming on. Peace. Go Lions, and good luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate you.
Man, what a great interview. They say save the best for last, and I think we may have done that. It was a great interview. Rivalry week is here, and I'm pumped. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. A lot of great matchups here, and playoffs are right around the corner.
It's crazy. This year has flown by. It feels like, just last week we had 60 seconds to decide who we wanted on our team. And man, we're here in Rivalry Week 11, last 4 weeks of the regular season. It's witching hour, baby. And I can't wait. So thank you, Jake, for coming on. Always a pleasure to have you. And always coming with the heat. I wasn't surprised at all. So with that said, we will let you go. We're always running a little bit longer, but who cares? So Hunter, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, next week we're just gonna be going over every matchup from Rivalry Week. Some new power rankings. Maybe Ashton takes back the number 1 spot. And as far as guest goes, I think now we have had everyone in the league on as a guest. So maybe we have to decide if we're going to recycle some old guests, depending on the current matchups, or maybe we surprise with a guest that's not in the league. I don't know. You just have to stay tuned for next week.
Yeah, stay tuned as always. Thank you for watching, and let's get out of here. Peace.
Peace.